Okay, let's get started. So, welcome to the Queen's Student Accessibility Services webinar. Before we get started, I just want to highlight how you can turn on live captions for this webinar. If you would like to add captions, select the More icon on the top right with the three dots, select Language and Speech, and then click on Show Live Captions. Now to get started, my name is Ella. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the first year foundation student lead in the Student Experience Office this summer. I'm going into my fourth year in the math program with a minor in computing. And my role in the SEO this summer involves hosting our summer webinars, just like this one, and facilitating our virtual socials, the first one of which is on June 29th. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing on the Student Experience Office's YouTube channel within a few business days. So I would like to take a moment to do a quick land acknowledgement. And kind of reflect on the history of the land that Queen's University is situated on. Kingston is located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee Indigenous peoples. My intention in acknowledging this traditional territory is to recognize the significance for the Indigenous peoples who lived and continue to live on this land, and whose practices and spiritualities are tied to the land and continue to develop in a relationship to the territory and its other inhabitants today. As a settler and an uninvited guest, I make an effort in my daily life to educate myself about Indigenous culture and practices by attending Indigenous-led events on campus and exploring Indigenous spaces, and I encourage you to do the same. I recently had the opportunity to take a walking tour of Indigenous spaces and art on Queen's campus and reflect on what they can tell me about Indigenous experiences. A particular space that really stood out to me was the Endinayon Taganuso Day Residence Courtyard. It features a large gathering space with Indigenous symbolism. In the center of the space, there's a large turtle shell, which really makes me think about Turtle Island, which is the Indigenous name for the continent of North America. This space really reminds me of Indigenous teachings that are centered on interconnection with the land and encourages me to reflect. It's important to reflect on Indigenous histories and teachings and to contribute to a more inclusive community that works towards reconciliation. If this is new to you or if you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to explore the resources offered by the Office of Indigenous Initiatives and the Four Directions Indigenous Student Center, both online and on campus here at Queen's. Thank you for taking this moment to learn and reflect with me. I'm now going to pass it over to our main speaker for today, Mary with QSAS. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you so much. And hi, thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. Our goal tonight is to ensure that you have the knowledge and resources to register for academic accommodations if you experience barriers to your education due to a disability. And we're excited to have you here. My name is Mary Bynack. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an assistant manager with Queen's Student Accessibility Services. I'll refer to our office as QSAS for the remainder of the presentation. We want to congratulate you on being accepted to Queen's and look forward to welcoming you to our campus. So QSAS supports students with disability-related barriers to their education. We provide academic accommodations to students based on their first-person experience of disability, as well as their supporting documentation. In this presentation, you will learn about who we are and what we do, how to register with our office, including documentation requirements and when to register, and what to expect as you get academic accommodations in place. So let's get started and learn about who we are and what we do. Our physical location is in Mitchell Hall. We have in-person and remote meeting options for all students. You can find more information on our website through the intake guide or by meeting with an intake coordinator during one of our office hours. Our team is here to support you, and the first point of contact for students is our office ops administrator. And so she responds to inquiries and assists walk-in students, supports appointment rescheduling, processes forms such as letters of accommodation, sometimes medical documentations and referrals and so forth. Our intake coordinators are a great resource to you as you get registered. They can answer general questions and guide you through the registration process. They will review the documentation that you submit to ensure it meets our criteria. And after that, once you're registered with our office, you will be assigned to an accessibility advisor. Our accessibility advisors, they are assigned based on faculty. So engineering has a specific accessibility advisor, so does commerce and all of the different faculties. Our advisors review medical documentation and sorry, can you go back one slide? They review medical documentation, they meet with you to understand your lived experience, they create an accommodation plan with you, and then will provide ongoing support for you as you pursue your degree. Also, we have a management team. So this management team supports staff to ensure that all students with disabilities get the accommodations that they need. We ensure services follow the legal and university policies and procedures. We use feedback to improve our services, and then we help advise the university on academic accommodations as well. We're here to support your academic accessibility needs, and we'll review your documentation, your intake form, meet with you to better understand the functional impacts of your disability and to develop an academic accommodation plan. We'll support you in the implementation of your accommodation plan given the academic requirements of your program. And as needed, we'll meet with you to adjust your accommodation plan as it's required. Another thing that we often do is refer to other services and resources. So sometimes it's not just an accommodation that's needed, but maybe it's academic advising, or maybe you need residence accommodations, counseling, study skills and learning strategies, or adaptive technology. And there's all different departments on our campus where we might direct you for other resources as well and services. I want to make sure it's clear that we don't provide academic advising, that there's separate offices for that, and we don't provide residence accommodations either. So please make sure you're connecting with the residents for that. And then also with counseling, there's separate services for that. So now we're going to talk about how to register with our office. So we encourage students who know that they have a disability and require academic accommodations to register as soon as possible. We accept new applicants throughout the year. However, it's best to register as soon as you know that you have a disability and require accommodations. So early registration means being able to start the term with your accommodations in place. The entire accommodation process can take several weeks, so we encourage you to start early. Waiting until the end, until classes start to register may delay your accommodations until the middle of your first term, and assignments and deadlines come quicker than you think, so it's really good to get registered as soon as possible. The earliest you can register is after you're matriculated, which typically happens by June 20th. So if you have your net ID, if you have all that information that has been provided to you, you can register with our office. So there's 5 steps to registering with QSAS. First, you'll log into Ventus, and I'll speak about what Ventus is. You'll complete an intake form, you'll submit or upload your medical documentation, you'll watch for your intake appointment to be scheduled, and then you'll meet with an advisor. So I'm going to go through each of these separately. So first is to log into Ventus. So Ventus is Queen's accommodation management system. You can register with QSAS, manage accommodations, upcoming tests, quizzes, and exams in Ventus. So this is where, like, the hub for everything that will happen with your academic accommodations. The second step is, once you've logged into Ventus, you'll complete an intake form that exists in Ventus. The intake form asks for general information about previous accommodations that you've had, the functional impacts that that your disability has, and it will help your advisor to get to know you and determine what accommodations might serve you best. The third step is to submit the medical documentation. So again, Ventus will prompt you, and it's all within Ventus. So after completing the intake form, you'll be prompted to upload documentation that meets our criteria. And so to meet our criteria, you must confirm in your documentation, must confirm that you are a student with a disability, so that you have a diagnosis that is confirmed by a healthcare provider. It must contain information about functional impacts, and it must indicate the duration and severity of the disability or impairment. So those are the 3 things that are really important to have on your documentation. So some examples of that are a psychoeducational assessment. This is specifically important if you have a diagnosed learning disability, and it needs to be completed within the last 5 years or after you've turned 18. Typically with adult rating scales is what we look for. So yeah, that's the psychoeducational assessment. Sometimes those include other diagnoses other than learning disability, but that's that's actually the only one that you can submit for learning disability. If you have outdated documentation, if it's not within that 5 years, we still encourage you to upload it, and we can help get you interim accommodations while you're getting an updated assessment. So don't wait. Do submit what you have, but know that you won't get permanent accommodations with an outdated psychoeducational assessment. Another way or another form that is acceptable at our office is the OSAP disability form. So OSAP stands for the Ontario Student Assistance Program, and they have a form that is often completed for bursaries and other reasons for students with disabilities. That's also an acceptable form that can be uploaded to Ventus. We have Queen's verification forms, disability verification forms on our website that can also be uploaded. So there's a specific section about documentation criteria, so you can go and get that completed with your healthcare provider. One thing that's really great about these forms is that if you get it completed now, we know that it has updated functional impacts, which is one of the things that really helps our advisors understand what is needed for your accommodations. We do accept other medical documentation that confirms those three things that I stated. So confirms a disability, has functional impacts, and outlines the severity and duration of the accommodation of the disability. Sometimes those aren't complete as getting the verification form filled out. So if you're going to choose one or the other, choose the verification form to get filled out. Okay, so after you've uploaded all of your documentation and submitted it, we ask you to just wait 4 to 5 business days when you'll receive an email with next steps. And so those next steps will be booked for a meeting with your accessibility advisor to have an intake appointment. So it takes about 4 to 5 business days. And another thing that's really important here is that this goes to your Queen's email account. So you might not be used to checking your Queen's email quite yet, but we really encourage you to check it frequently, especially after you submitted documentation, so that you can see and that you know when your appointment has been scheduled and all the information that we'll be communicating with you. If we schedule for a time that doesn't work for you, there are options to reschedule that will be communicated in the email, so just check there for any information. The next step is that you will meet with your advisor, your accessibility advisor, for an intake appointment. So during this meeting, we're going to talk about what you can expect through the accommodation process and when you meet with your advisor. The first thing we want to talk about is the confidentiality. So this is something that's really important to us, that we maintain strict confidentiality standards and safeguards to the information that you share with us. So we're the only ones who have access to the disability and the documentation and so forth. And anything that we share with the faculties or with your professors would be the accommodations. They wouldn't know the reason that you're registered for us or anything like that. So confidentiality is a really important thing for our office. I'd like to now talk about setting up your accommodations. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to add a little bit about parents in this section. So I do want to say that students are the primary point of contact for us. That we communicate directly with a student regarding anything with QSAS or with their accommodations. and information cannot be shared with parents or supporters without the student's explicit consent. The next thing that I want to share is that student participation is expected. So meetings and accommodation planning are designed to help students develop communication and self-advocacy skills and take an active role in managing their experience in the university. And so we can't meet with parents to set up the accommodation plan rather than the student. The student needs to be present for that. The third thing that I think is really important here is that consent is required for all parent, guardian, or supporter involvement. We welcome parents to attend intake meetings if the student wants them to and gives permission for them to be there. The consent can be verbal consent in the meeting, but they must provide appropriate consent for anybody to attend the meeting with them or even in the future. One thing that I want to share is just how can you help, right? This is a time of transition for a lot of people. And so what can parents and supporters do in order to help their child prepare? We encourage you to help your student practice explaining their needs, asking questions, ensuring that they're checking their university email regularly, maybe keeping a track of important deadlines and preparing for meetings by identifying topics that they'd like to discuss. Any coaching and encouragement can help build confidence while allowing them to take ownership of the process. And so we really encourage that, and that's a requirement of our office as well. So now let's go back to talking about what you can expect when you're meeting with your accessibility advisor. So while I said it's good to maybe write down and jot down some ideas about things that you want to talk about so that you don't forget, you don't have to prepare in any certain way for this meeting. Your accessibility advisor will guide the question and will guide the meeting and help ask questions that will allow you to share what your functional impacts are and figure out what accommodations might be best. So yeah, you'll talk about your disability and how it impacts your academics. They'll probably ask things like, when you're in exam setting, what does that look like for you? Are there things that are distracting for you? If so, tell me, like, describe that for me. After understanding your first person experience of the disability and how that is impacting you in the academic setting, your advisor will recommend accommodations and co-create a plan with you. And they'll explain how those accommodations work. The meeting you can expect to last about 35 to 45 minutes. There's a full hour booked, but typically most of the discussion can be completed in 30 to 45 minutes. And another thing that I'll just mention is that your advisor will be taking notes while you speak, but you don't need to worry about that because everything, like I mentioned before, is confidential in the meeting. They just do this to remember what was discussed and to ensure that we have record of anything that that happened in the meeting. Let's see, after making recommendations for accommodations, they'll also make recommendations for other campus resources. I mentioned some of them before, like counseling. Another great one is Student Academic Success Services, or SAS is what it's referred to as. And they have learning strategists that can help support you in maybe developing a timetable to help you with managing your time at the beginning of the year. And they're another resource that I highly recommend at the beginning of the year. Following this meeting, your advisor will send a follow-up email with information on your next steps and what you can expect going forward. So that is everything that we have about how to register with QSAS and our processes. And so we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Mary. So everyone, the floor is now yours for the Q&A portion of this webinar. Feel free to use the Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen to send in any of your questions. And also, if it makes you feel more comfortable, you're welcome to use the anonymous feature as well. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can during this time, but we also have a great team on the back end to answer more specific questions in the chat as well. So let's see what our first question is. Can you go over Ventus?
Sure. So, like, I guess I'm trying to better understand, like Ventus as in, um, how to log in, where to find that information. So the best place to find that information is on the website. So if you go to accessibility services, there is a drop down that says using Ventus, and right there, there's a button that you click on. And when you log into that, the prompts will come up for you. So the very first thing will be the intake form that you fill out, and then it will, once you've completed that, it will go right into how to upload documentation. The other thing I'll mention with that is that we have an intake guide that we can share with you that goes step by step how to go through Ventus, and so that's probably your best resource for seeing step by step how to go through Ventus.
Amazing. Our next question, I have an upcoming assessment. Can I start the registration process with QSAS while I await my appointment?
Yeah, you can. And so I would say that you can start filling, like register, like signing up for Ventus, fill out the intake form, and if you send an email to our intake coordinators, letting them know when your appointment is and so forth, they can help navigate that with you.
Awesome. Okay. Who counts as a healthcare professional that can help me fill out my documentation?
That's great, a great question. So a lot of that is also listed on our website of for different disabilities who would be the appropriate healthcare professional. So often it's a family doctor or a nurse practitioner, depending again on the diagnosis. So typically we say that the diagnosing healthcare professional is the one who should be filling out the form.
Okay, our next question, are the accommodations reassessed on an ongoing basis?
So we put in accommodations based on the documentation. So if they're permanent accommodations, meaning your documentation meets the criteria for having ongoing accommodations, you'll receive it for the duration of your time at Queen's. So about 4 years typically. If your documentation doesn't fully meet our criteria and there's something missing potentially or it's outdated, you'll get interim accommodations for a set amount of time, and then it will be reviewed, or we require updated documentation in order to review and update those accommodations. In addition, I would say that so for the most part, if you have great documentation, you'll set up your accommodation plan and it will be ready for you for the whole time that you're at Queen's. Um, if there's something that comes up, maybe you have a new diagnosis or something happens and you just need a change to your accommodation plan, you can always come back and talk to your advisor or us at QSAS, and we can review that accommodation plan with you.
Awesome. Okay, our next question. Um, I have an individual education plan IEP from high school. Can I still use this for my documentation?
So we actually require documentation that has been signed by a healthcare professional. So it's helpful for us to maybe see that IEP. However, we do require the documentation that was mentioned previously in this presentation. So maybe the verification form or a psychoeducational assessment, something like that.
Okay. Our next question. Will I get the same accommodations that I had in high school?
So not necessarily. So we evaluate the accommodation needs based on the academic setting in university. So we consider your program, like I mentioned before, we have faculty specific advisors. So sometimes we know that there's different nuances in different faculties. And so we provide accommodations based on your current functional impacts and the program of study that you're in. So they could be similar to high school, but they could also be different.
Okay, our next question. I have old documentation. Can I still get accommodations?
Yeah, if you only have outdated documentation, then we encourage you to upload that while you're maybe in the process of getting newer documentation. Um, And so, yes, you can get accommodations for an interim time, but you wouldn't be able to get permanent accommodations necessarily with outdated documentation.
Okay. I think that's all our questions. We'll give it about 30 more seconds in case anybody wants to pop in one more question. But in the meantime, I have put on the slide some more resources. We have our Next Step website, as well as our first year foundations, as well as a variety of QSAS resources. Let's see if we have any more. I don't think we have any more, but thank you everyone for your questions. We recognize that maybe you're going to think of something after this webinar, so feel free to visit the QSAS website or contact them at qsas.intake@queensu.ca to book an appointment or to get any additional answers for any of your questions. And oh, it looks like somebody has a raised hand. If you did raise your hand, feel free to ask any questions you may have. But unfortunately, I can't. Oh, how do we get this full presentation? There will be a recording that will be posted to the Student Experience website in the next couple business days. Hopefully that answers your question. But yes, before everybody heads out, I would like to highlight a quick opportunity to be entered into a draw for a $50 Q-Shop gift card. We have a feedback form for our webinar series, and we want to hear from all of you. All incoming students, parents, and supporters are encouraged to provide their feedback. It will only take approximately 3 minutes to complete, and it can all be done using the QR code that's currently on the screen. We will also post a link to it in the Q&A discussion section. You can complete one feedback form per student experience webinar per person. And if you're watching this recording, you can also complete the survey. It will close August 31st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, shortly after the final webinar takes place. I want to thank our presenter, Mary, as well as our back-end support staff for their time this evening, and I'd like to thank all of you at home for attending. Make sure to tune in to our next webinar on Tuesday, June 23rd at 7:30 p.m., our Intro to First Year Foundations. Learn more about all the transitioning program our office has in store for you this summer, and we hope to see you there. So take care, everyone. I hope everyone has an amazing night. Yeah, have a lovely rest of your evening.